What's up, people? I'm Clint13, and this is another of my reviews. Before we get into it, take a moment to like and subscribe so you don't miss a thing. Done? Okay, let's go! It's Remnant from the Ashes, and for those of you who have not played the game yet, don't worry, this video is spoiler free. The game isn't the best looking because rendering sometimes has heavy lag. A major issue for me was the color palette chosen, because it just didn't allow for more immersion, or serious immersion into the game, because the colors were just so dull and there was no vibrancy to sort of make me feel like I was part of the game and what was going on. Also, the buildings themselves looked like the windows and doors or even signs had just been copy and pasted on, not like they had actually been molded or like actually made in. It looked like somebody had just put a picture of windows and signs onto a massive like cuboid and just thought, yeah, that's done, let's make a game now. Remnant does encourage replayability though, because the maps themselves keep being made for every time you replay. So it's not like you can memorize the map. Every time you replay the game, like it will be a different map, although you're at the same level. Like let's say you're at level 1, but if you start again for the 10th time, the monuments will change. Every now and then like something would have changed, so you can't really memorize the map and clock it quicker. Like it'll be a bit harder for people to speedrun it, innit? Character customization was there, but there wasn't much to say about it. It was pretty basic really, and you couldn't really change much about the player. This game actually had a lot of loot to be able to unlock so that I could develop my playstyle, which was very, very beneficial. And it came even like using perks and adding perks and mods onto guns so that I could either be able to heal myself and the party, or something instant like as damaging, having extra, being able to deal being able to deal extra damage onto like enemies, especially when it came to boss battles, which I have to admit I was getting murked at, and I needed something like that. This being a Souls-like game, I was expecting more of a challenge from the get-go, but it wasn't really there, at least until I started fighting bosses anyway. The gameplay and combat was actually pretty quick to pick up, and it was reminiscent to like old school PS3 and Xbox 360 games, like something like Marvel Ultimate Alliance, and it brought on a nostalgia of games like that. Playing the game alone felt very just dead, to be fair. Just like I would not want to play the game by myself. I would not even feel a need to complete it by myself. But once I got one of my boys to jump on,
Dylan! Son of a bitch.
And we actually played it like with the co-op mode, and the game got a bit harder, but not in a sense like, oh, it's a Souls-like game now. It got a bit harder, that there was just more of a challenge, but it wasn't a big challenge until we fought our first like boss, if you could call him that. And yeah, it just felt more fun, just the co-op and being able to talk to somebody while you're playing it. And I forgot that there was even a story, to be fair, until like, you know, it was a cutscene. But yeah, there aren't that many. Gameplay is basic but quick to pick up, and that's what makes it fun. And the gunplay and melee attacks are actually done really well, that you don't feel any stiffness or anything like that. You know what I mean? But yeah, so it was pretty good to play really. The only thing I will say is that when the hordes of like enemies get bigger and bigger and the bosses get obviously tougher and tougher, that's when shit gets real. The story was just so dry, and like, I mean, do you remember that chicken that Molly May cooked for Toby Fury like a while back? Like like that dry, like for real. It was just so dead. Like at times I forgot there was even a plot. I was just walking around aimlessly until there was like I said earlier, until there was a flipping I forgot the word now. Until there was a cutscene. Yeah, but then obviously once my boy hopped on and then we started doing co-op, like we were just running through it. Like we weren't even bothered about the story. It was just that unforgettable side characters and like NPCs the voice acting alone was just dead. There was no effort in it. There was no effort, like there was no delivery. You know what I mean? It was like my first video back then when I sounded like, however, the video and the, you know what I mean? Like just no emphasis, no energy like this now. It's the fact that I wanted this and they gave me this. With textures on buildings that looked like they had been pasted on and at times just lacked depth. And then enemies that got predictable after 10 minutes and dependent more on hordes. For a Souls-like game, this was pretty weak.
Bullet up selector!
For a Souls-like game, this was pretty weak. But for a third-person co-op shooter, this was a pretty fun game to play. And the leveling up was frequent, but not too often that it got easier and easier. And bosses that gave me countless reasons to. If you're playing carelessly like I was here. Here. And here. There was nothing about the story that encouraged me to carry on playing. At one point, I was even considering playing a whole different game just for the sake of reviewing it. You guys could have gotten Fall Guys this week. Imagine that. But once the co-op started, and well, I was hooked. I was really hooked, and I played for another. After 15 minutes, I was not willing to carry on playing the game, and then once my boy jumped on, I played for another like 2 hours, and then a random guy jumped on and we played for a third hour. Like, friends. The game does get addictive, although it's a bit repetitive. It gets really addictive the more people you have playing. It's not a solo game. I would not recommend it for a solo sort of game to play. All of that put together, this game gets 3.2 out of 5 daisies. Let me know what you thought of this game, and more importantly, this review in the comments. P.S. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss a thing.